Hey everybody, welcome back to Behind the Voice podcast. I'm joined by Shalin Shodhan, the director of the upcoming Detective Dotson video game made in India. This game was also featured in Future Game Showcase earlier this year by the voice of Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2 and Tifa from Final Fantasy VII Remake.
It was their idea. We had to produce it in 4 days. My team's jaws were just on the floor when I told them what we had to do. For people that are not from India, I really want them to think of this like a cultural joyride and get a bit more curious about modern India specifically.
Another reason to also be excited about this game is this you're also creating a show for it.
You don't need to watch the show to play the game or vice versa. The complete experience is that you watch the show and then you play the game and then the story kind of continues. There needs to be a show for the world where they can understand modern India.
I just want to say first, congratulations on the trailer being showcased at Future Game Showcase, which is really cool. Showcased by Roger Clark and Britt Barron, not just normally, but also in engine, which is really cool. So congratulations on that.
Thanks so much. That was a lot of fun to do. And it was their idea. You know, we always try to do a pixel version of the creators that work with us. Mm-hmm. And they came back to us with this idea that what if, our presenters could do the whole line introducing the game in engine, in show. And so we produced that for them. It was very quick. We had to produce it in 4 days. So it was a little hectic, but we had an absolute blast doing that. I mean, Arthur Morgan, man, Roger Clark is like, my team's jaws were just on the floor when I told them what we had to do. So it was really good.
Yeah, it was so cool to see that because, as I said, Roger Clark, Arthur Morgan he has played, and Britt Barron also has played Tifa in the Final Fantasy game. So it was so cool to see both of them. And it was fresh. It was just not like they're in the studio kind of presenting their every other game, but it was like in the game itself with the pixel character. It was lovely. And the trailer was very cool.
Britt's great. She's a proper actress. I mean, she's in Glow on Netflix.
Yes.
And stuff like that. So yeah, that's awesome.
That's so cool. And you guys also had a on-ground IGN fan event demo as well. So that, and then a lot of people got to play there, and obviously the demo was out as well on Steam. So how has this general reception been for the game?
Yeah, it's been really good. We really wanted to validate that people all around the world will want to play a game that's about an Indian detective, and we're getting great response, especially for the setting, the visuals, the music, all of that. So that sense of place is really resonating with people. It's something new and fresh that they want to do, and people want more. So now we have to make it. We have to produce the whole thing. Yeah.
Crap, the game needs to come out, I guess then. But no, I'm super excited. I'm so happy that a lot of people are resonating with it. And I saw the video, some of the reactions that people had with the game once they finally finished the demo. And they really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed it. I had a great time because there's a lot of elements that I just didn't expect to be in the game, especially in the demo. And which is like, there was one aspect that I completely did not expect is where the last part of the city was something like on a kind of horror, dark, something's going on. I was like, that is, I did not expect to have that section, and then the explosions and everything. So it was really, really cool to see all those moments. But if I travel back in time, in your kind of career, you have this passion for computer graphics in general, and you've been doing so many things over time. How did this passion came about initially?
Oh my God! I mean, that goes back to when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And I'm dating myself here a little bit, but I grew up in the age of, ZX Spectrum and 286 and 386 computers, and we used to play CGA games. But for some reason, to me, it was always much more fascinating to think about how they were made. And, my dad once took me to visit a company where they were doing some graphics work, and it's the first time I saw a color monitor in my life, and I saw like a transformer spinning on that monitor at like what could have been like 1 frame a second. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, whatever this is, I don't know what this is, but whatever this is, I kind of this is what I want to do. Like, I want to figure this out. I want to do this, and I want to be immersed in this. And there's just been that clarity from a young age, which I'm very thankful for, right? And a lot of people don't take a long time to figure out what they want to do. But I knew from the beginning that this is what I wanted to do. And it helped me make good decisions and align to that path.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love the fact that kind of helped you to understand where you want to go. And because especially initially, I was also very, very much fascinated with just 3D, not like, 3D and how, the movies, how CGI was used. And then I got introduced to like or discovered these programs, Cinema 4D and stuff like that, and I started creating some of these stuff and modeled a little bit, and then I realized how much patience it requires to do the
Yeah.
modeling, do weights, and edges, and make sure that there's not enough polygon counts. It was a lot, so it's a
Yeah.
hard to work to do all of that.
Oh yeah. It's an art, it's a science, it's a craft, it's all of those things, and it's. I always think of the video games. I don't know who said this, but like I really think this analogy makes a lot of sense, which is video games to the computer industry is like F1 racing to the automobile industry, right?
Oh
And
wow.
it's you're really pushing the envelope of what a computer can do in video games, as a field. And I love that about this medium. That's what makes it so fun for me to be in this medium.
Yeah, it's very interesting. That is a great analogy. Wow, that's a very good one. But yeah, you're right. Video games has this a new own world. A lot of people are getting into it. It's getting a more of a perspective from everybody now, which is really really fun. And going from there, from bringing your passion up, and you also worked in a lot of Pixar movies, and some of them won Oscars. You worked on Toy Story 3, Cars 2, Brave, some really
Yeah.
cool movies. What was your role in Pixar working on all these movies?
Yeah, I spent 5 years at Pixar. The entire time I was in a department called shading. So for anyone who doesn't know, shading is basically if you have any surface, it has a texture, it responds to light in a certain way. You kind of have to write that behavior as a program, and you use a lot of art in that program. So you use patterns, and textures, and curves to dictate how any surface, whether that's a hair, or whether that's a slug, or whether that's a piece of metal, whatever it is, how it should behave in lighting. So that's the shading department. I spent 5 years in that department, first as a tools developer, where I was in charge of the shading tool that was used by all the shading artists at Pixar, which there was more than 50 artists working on up to 4 films at the same time, all using the same tool. And then, while my kind of mode of operation there was to always be at their desks and ask them about their problems and try to fix things for them. In that mode, I just realized that these people are having too much fun. Like this shading, being a shading artist, being a shading technical director is way too much fun. And so I kind of, after 2 years of being a tools developer, I became a shading technical director, and I got to work on Monsters University as a character TD, and on Inside Out as a sets TD. So I got kind of both those experiences, characters and sets, and it was incredible, man. It was just unbelievable amounts of learning. It's a fantastic place.
Wow, that's so cool. Getting from tools programmer to going to more into sets and character, that's a great jump, and it's so lovely because
Yeah.
Pixar movies have done doing such wonderful job. This recent movie that came out, I'm completely forgetting as well, but it's so cool that you worked on these movies and got so much to learn, and that also has helped now currently. What do you think are some of the learnings that you got from there that has currently helped you build this particular project?
Lots of things. I mean, Pixar as a company is so, it's a big company, and for it to be so aligned and focused on story, like they make it very clear that story is king at Pixar. And sometimes that can be frustrating. Like, for example, if you are a tools developer and you are reminded that the name is not Pixar Software Studios, it's Pixar Animation Studios, right? And that sometimes that can be frustrating, right? But as a company, they know what they want to do. There's just absolute clarity that story is the most important thing. And I think that's important for every company to know and have that clarity about what it is they want to do. So for us at Masala Games, which is my company that I run now, I think for us, it's, obviously story is one way, but like what we want to do is bring delight to people. And, we have our own formula for how we want to do that. But that's the guiding principle. That's the clarity that whatever we make, it should delight audiences. Our method to achieve that is through giving people, new things and surprise them. Like you said, when you played Dotson, that there were things that were so unexpected in there.
Yeah.
That's kind of our formula for bringing delight to people, which is you think something's going to do this, but like when you start playing with it, it can do all this. And then that's where you're like amazed and delighted. And so I think that there's just so many things I learned at Pixar, but like I think that's the one that stands out to me, where just be clear about who you are as a group, right? And then align everybody around that, and kind of proceed. But I would highly recommend reading Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, the president of Pixar. It's an unbelievable book, and I think it really condenses a lot of the learnings that that a lot of people who worked at Pixar would have had into one place. So I would recommend that book.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, that's a book that I've heard so many people talk about, and it's like, okay, that's a book to go with. But with working with Pixar for so long, what made the decision to, okay, let's leave Pixar and move on to something else?
Yeah. So the kind of the lesser known side is that my training and my profession was software, right? And at Pixar, when you're a technical artist or a technical director, you're not making as much as a software engineer. You're just not, right?
Yeah.
And my wife and I knew that we were pregnant, and we also knew that we were going to have twins, and sustaining, our existence in the Bay Area and all of that. We had to take that decision. That was one. I think the other thing about Pixar is because it's such an awesome place, nobody ever leaves. And so it's very hard to grow. Because let's say I wanted my next path in growing at Pixar would have been a shading supervisor role. If I'm applying for a shading supervisor role at Pixar, there's 4 other people who have done that role for 5 years, and then how are you supposed to compete? And Pixar is aware of this problem. To their credit, they're trying a lot with short films and stuff like that to give people chances. But it was. I couldn't justify staying there for that long, given what my situation was at the time, and so I moved on, and actually went back into games at that point.
Yeah, that's very cool, and I totally understand the idea of not having enough growth, can't stick with the company. Unfortunately, whatever it is, but you did stick with games, and you worked with EA on Spore, which is the full process from the concept till the end. How was that like working on that game, which is so beloved?
Yeah, that was an insane experience as well. I mean, I can't believe that I got to have both these experiences. So Spore happened, just for context, it happened before Pixar. So 2000, I guess I did my internship in 2004 or early 2005 is when 2004 is when I did my internship, and 2005 is when I joined full time. The Spore thing is crazy because now we're back in 2003 when I joined Carnegie Mellon for my master's. I had just gotten there for the fall semester. So I would have gone there in August, and we must be in November. And a recruiter from EA had come to the campus. And so everybody was kind of meeting with her and, having meetings with her and whatnot. And so I showed her some of the work that I'd done. I'd done some work at ISRO, at the Space Research Organization, as my final year project for my undergrad. And so I had a public version of that I could show as a portfolio piece. And so I showed her that, and it was it had some terraforming. It was kind of like Google Earth, but very old version of that. We're talking 2003. So, so I showed that to her, and she's like, "Oh, this would be great for Will's next project." And I'm like, "Who Will?" And she's like, "Will Wright." And I was just like, "Are you serious?" Will Wright, the creator of The Sims.
Yeah.
And Will was on the phone with me the next day, and he's like, "So when can you join?" And I'm like, "I just got here. I literally just got to the US, and what is this?" And so it was crazy. I mean, that's what a university like Carnegie Mellon kind of affords you. That gives you these kind of doors open for you, and these kind of opportunities show up, and it was amazing. So when I did my internship, it was just 10 people on the Spore team. It was very experimental. This is when the GDC demo kind of came out, so I got to work on that GDC demo, and then that turned into my full-time job. And unbelievable experience. I was in the core technology team as a graphics programmer, and my lead there, who's also my mentor, his name is Andrew Wilmot, is an unbelievable engineer. He's also CMU. He had a PhD from CMU in computer graphics.
Oh, wow.
Really, really fantastic developer, engineer, and I just learned so much from him. I learned so much from everybody on the Spore team, because they were all, extremely passionate, extremely skillful, extremely deep thinking people. A lot of them are still my close friends, and just had an incredible experience because of building that game. The way that game launched and seeing those realities of what can happen to such a project was also a very good learning experience, though not necessarily a positive experience. But I thought that was also very eye-opening and interesting experience. What happened with the game when it launched, and it got 1-star bomb because of DRM and all of that controversy and stuff. So looking at that kind of life cycle of how a game gets marketed and seeing that early on in my career was also very interesting learning for me.
Yeah, wow. It has an interesting. Did had an interesting launch, which is with the 1 stars and everything. Yeah, but so cool that you get to work on with EA on a game like this, full all the way through from the very beginning, and get to be with EA working. Just got to US, and somehow it just all happens. So cool and so amazing. And it's wonderful. You worked in EA, Pixar, and now you're at Masala Games, which has been there for 12 years, and you're working on Detective Dotson. But this is not your first game technically, and Word Mess was your first game. And usually with studios like or in India, they're creating different kind of games, indie games, like small, very easy to play. Word Mess is like a word finding game. What made you to decide on let's make a wordish game?
So the funny story there is that Word Mess is a game I made on the side while I was at Pixar, right? So even though I'd quit the game industry and gone into film, I still wanted to make games like as a hobby. And so that's when I made Word Mess. And to launch it, because I was an immigrant in the US and I couldn't launch it from there, that's when I formed Masala Games in India to launch the game. So that's why Masala Games was incorporated in 2012. Although we didn't make our first hire many years later after I returned to India is when I actually made the first, and the team started happening. But the incorporation was in 2012 to launch Word Mess. The reason I made Word Mess is I used to, there was a word cloud generator somewhere online, and I saw that, and I was like, wow, this thing is so slow, and the results are so weird. I bet I could do better. And so as a hobby, I was just writing an algorithm to do word cloud generation. And I had so much fun doing that I was like, oh, this could be a whole game. And I bet I could run it on the phone. And so at that time, we're talking like 2009, 2010, generating word clouds on the fly on on an iPhone at the time, I thought was a pretty cool technical trick. And so I made a nice little game out of it, took some help from some friends, and authored a bunch of levels and released it. And that was a lot of fun. It was like tasting blood, like when the tiger tastes blood and you can't go back. It's like that entrepreneurship, small taste of entrepreneurship that I got from having my own product in the market. One person saying something good about Word Mess online was like worth more to me than Toy Story 3 winning an Oscar, because it was my fingerprints. It was my little baby. Whereas Toy Story 3, you're just one person in a huge team. Not to say I'm not proud of it, but like the ownership was just very different, right? And so that's the story of Word Mess. It was purely launched like as a hobby project, as a hey, I have this technical tool that I made. Like, what can I turn that into a game? And then I didn't even realize, but I got so many letters from teachers and occupational therapists and parents saying that their children or their patients were benefiting from the game, and it just blew my mind. Wow. I didn't have any concept of at that time of education and games being relevant to each other. And gosh, what an amazing use of games that is. And we've been, as Masala Games, we've done so much work in education since then that I consider us to be fairly deeply involved in the educational game space now. And that was the start of that journey. So
that's so cool. Wonderful that it as a side project, but from there as I said, you tasted blood, and now 12 years later, you have Detective Dotson coming out soon. And it's so incredible because this one is trying to portray the picture of India, which is modern India, not just what happened in the past and the gods and not all that. But so the concept of this game was really interesting because there's pixel art characters in a 3D world. So how did this concept initially came upon, and why the idea of 3D and pixel together?
The very early prototype of Dotson, even before it was a detective game, we had a visual puzzle, where the image would refine and you would form a character, and then you have to recognize the character and stuff like that. So that's why it was also called Dotson, because he's made out of dots. But then when we knew that that gimmick was not enough and we wanted to make a more narrative based game, we started doing some experiments with that style because we really liked the pixel characters, the Indian representations, like this art that you see behind me. That was one of the first pieces we did of Indian gods in pixel art, and that looked really cool as well. But then we took the pixel characters and put them on top of photographs, just like a photograph of some place. And then we also animated those pixel characters on top of the photograph, and it looked so cool. And it looked so unlike anything we'd ever seen that we were like, oh my God, like this has to be our style. And while we couldn't quite pull off the immersion for a full game with just photographs, we wanted to make it realistic and 3D as much as possible. So that's how we decided to make a realistic 3D India for the game, and pixel characters populating it.
Yeah, and it's so cool to see that, because that is a unique look to it, because usually it's either a pixel full game or it's probably trying to be 3D or somewhere in between, but never mixing it together. And I know one of the challenges that you team had to face was creating the 3D assets, which is not available anywhere really. So you have to build everything from scratch, all of it, bikes, roads, buildings, every single piece. So that must be a challenge.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? Like, I mean, most game developers, when they're in prototype phase, they pick up assets from stores, right? And that's how they get started and do stuff. There are no assets to represent India. There's just not there. And that speaks so much to why there's not many games about India, because there's not even the ingredients are not even there in the space, right? And so I was like, wow, this is a real problem. And we invested, we got a modeling team, and we built everything ourselves. And I would really like this to not be a problem for others later on. And once we're done and once we're launched, I would be very happy to open source all our sort of 3D models for India and just to the community, and be like, here you go. And now you don't have an excuse. You have to make games about modern India.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's so bizarre when I got to know, like, oh, there are no 3D models. It makes sense. Why? Because there's not been any games with the modern setting. So there is no cars, there's no ambassador out there, there's no Volkswagen, there's none of the buildings that India has, none of the structures that India has.
Or even if you think about our local trees, right? If you think about a gulmohar tree or a banyan tree or a neem tree or any of these things, if you buy a tree pack on any of the asset stores right now, you won't find these. Maybe a tropical tree would come close, but you won't find these kind of trees. And so that's something we still haven't solved, by the way. We don't have we have a cool banyan tree, but we don't have awesome representative trees that surround all of us that are so beautiful, because we live in a country with unbelievably beautiful vegetation, and it's a shame that that's not represented in our art form.
Yeah, definitely. And that is definitely such a big challenge, and trees in itself is insane. But what are the current challenges apart from this that you're also facing that still needs to work on?
I mean, I think there's an uphill battle in terms of marketing games that I think not just us, but everybody is facing, just because of the sheer quantity of games coming out, and the fact that everything is gate kept essentially by the platforms and the top publishers, right? If you don't have a seat at that table, or if you don't have access to that, then it's very difficult to get your game in front of players. I would say that's the number one thing that I would consider a difficult challenge for us right now. Everything else, I think we've been very fortunate, good position to execute and do cool stuff and delight our players. But making that connection with the right audience, I think, is still something we're working on and trying to crack.
Yeah, that you're right. With so many games out there, and not every game gets the same kind of shine of light as some of the other games gets to. But I'm really happy that with the demo out and with the games being showcased in these showcases, it helped get an understanding to people, like, okay, this is a game very interesting in a different Indian setting that people have not seen. And I'm so happy that that's there. And one of the things that is very interesting to me, because in whatever games is made in India, there's a lot of people from India who want to play it, but at the same time, majority of the people from India play the games on mobile, free games, the BGMI and the PUBGs and Free Fires. And so most of them either want to experience the biggest AAA game that is ever there, or they want to be like, oh, I'm just gonna go for a piracy and just gonna download this game from this place. So is there a concern for you specifically, even though I know the game is worldwide, people out there will be playing it in their ways, people in India, is there a concern that you will not get the same volume, or maybe it's going to be a different experience?
No, I'm not too worried about that. I think every time we've shown the game to an Indian audience, it's done really well. I think people associate it with summer vacation vibes
Yeah.
and good feelings. So I think and it's look. I know the people that play the shooter games are the loudest audience. They're not the biggest audience. The
True.
biggest audience is actually probably female audience that has mobile phones and is probably currently playing much more casual games, but they wouldn't mind a bit of narrative and a bit of content in their casual games. That's we would love to crack that, and that's what we're seeing time and again, not just in India, but whenever like you said, we were in IGN Live or whether we're at GDC showing our game, the audience tends to skew female. Women are having a much better time with our game in general and liking all the little details that we've tried to put in there. And that's fantastic. Like we want to make games for those underserved audiences, and they are huge audiences. They may not be very loud, and they might be a little bit harder to reach, and there might be some audience education required here, but it just the unlock that we achieved there would be commensurate to when like games like Bejeweled came out and like
Yeah.
casual games became a thing. Who was really propelling that? And that was actually female audiences were doing that, casual female gamers. So we would love to go there and provide something for that audience that is homemade, that has our themes, and something in which they feel represented and have a great time.
Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah, you are right, because this casual games does, most of them are females and women, and they're playing casually, and so that kind of rose up so much, and so I think that's a great audience to crack, and I think a lot of, and you said it right, like even some of the reactions that I saw, a lot of women, they're like so happy to see, like, I'm gonna play this game when it comes out, so I'm happy that they get excited. And another reason to also be excited about this game is this: you're also creating a show for it, which is going to be released before the game comes out. So why the idea of a show came up?
Yeah, really, it's another way to reach out to the audience, right? I think if we planned it from day one to be transmedia, I think we actually have a shot at doing a decent job. And we also realized about 2 years ago, when we were just beginning to conceptualize this, is that Unreal Engine had become so good that you could use game assets and output cinematic level stuff. And we kind of built a pipeline to do exactly that. So the same assets go to Unreal Engine for cinematic output, and the same go to Unity for the game, because Unity is much more portable. And so that enabled us, that technology unlock basically enabled us to dream a little bigger, even though we're a small studio, and say, okay, well, we're going to make a show that sets up the story. It's a detective IP, so there's obviously going to be a lot of story, but I really wanted that in the game, we don't take away control from the player to just expose more and more story, like make them read stuff. I don't want to do that. And so it's a good opportunity to make the narrative heavy lifting happen in the show. And then the game can be that much more interactive and flow really well. So while you don't need to watch the show to play the game, or vice versa, the complete experience is that you watch the show, the storyline of the show happens before the game, and then you play the game, and then the story kind of continues. And yeah, man, like folks that may not be otherwise inclined to download and play a detective game might watch the show on something accessible like a YouTube or wherever, and then be curious about it and at least explore and see if it's for them or not. Games wise. So yeah.
Yeah, I love this idea of having a show or having something more told in a cinematic, watchable format, like an episodic, whatever format, as a movie episode, whatever, and then also game on the side, because it's really unique experience. And before this, and I think there are probably more games, but the only game that I kind of image in my head is the games made by Remedy recently with Alan Wake, and how they had the episode, they had the movies inside, and that kind of blew people mind, because nobody was expecting that, and when it was there, people liked it. It was small and it was short, and people liked it that way and wanted more because of it. So I like those
Yeah.
ideas because those are unique and never done before. So I'm looking forward to that show, and I'm looking forward to see what's the more story is there, because I love the look. As you said, Unreal
Yeah.
Engine looks amazing, and with the
Yeah.
assets and pixel art, it's fabulous. So looking
Yeah.
forward to it. And as you mentioned, like the game is more interactive, and there's a lot of things in the game. The demo had that showcase a little bit, and one of the cool things that I really liked, I was just like going by, and just I saw somebody just throwing a litter, and then you can just pick it up and shoot it to that person, and you get points. And I was like,
Yeah.
that was really fun. So
Yeah.
how did those ideas come upon to make that as a
Man,
gameplay element?
I love being an Indian person. I love living in India, but I really hate how much people litter over here. It's why? I mean, it doesn't have to be that way,
Yeah.
right? And it's just people just do it so casually, and I'm very frustrated about it. So I thought, what a fun way to, and I'm sure a lot of people share that frustration. What a fun way to kind of take all that frustration out by making a game mechanic out of it and giving you points if you pick up the litter. And by the way, you can pick up. I don't know if this is in the demo, but eventually you can pick up the litter and put it in the dustbin as well. That's also fine. But I think it's more cathartic if you smack them right back.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that is a great little mechanic that I really love, because I did at first, and then I started doing it every time there was a lit. I was like, you are not running away from me, sir, madam, whoever you are. I'm just gonna throw it at you. I have to do it. It's just like something that I need to. So it's really fun, and there's a lot of fun moments, and that's why. And by the end of the demo, I was really intrigued by the narrative on how it ended, and I was like, no way this game has made me excited for the narrative. I thought it would be as casual as it is, but the narrative also drew me in with the gameplay and all that. But what are you most excited about for people to experience? What is the thing that you think or you are excited about that people can experience from this game?
So different things for different people. For Indian people, I really want them to appreciate the level of detail and feel like, oh, it's that thing that we know as
Yeah.
Indian people, and that's in a game in my hand or in my computer, whatever, right? That I think is that reaction I'm looking forward to from Indian people about the little things. For people that are not from India, I really want them to think of this like a cultural joyride and get curious, bit more curious about modern India specifically, and kind of realize how unique this place is.
Yeah.
And maybe it makes them want to visit. Maybe it makes them more curious. All of that is good. Those are all great outcomes. And that's it, man. There's not some grand ambition here beyond just a little bit of cultural dispersion. I always say, like, when I was a kid, I used to watch Friends, right? The show, and to me that was like American culture coming here. This is a reverse thank you for that, right? Like, here, there needs to be a show for the world where they can understand modern India, just like there's always been a show to understand culture from America, right?
Yeah.
Why are we not doing that? And I think this is a small little effort to do that.
Yeah, that is a very cool thing to say, that there was always one show, at least for anyone to learn or know more about Western media, Western side of things.
Yeah.
But there's none from here. And the ones that are being built here are so dramatic that probably people will switch it off. But like, it's just one of those things that I wish there was more that people would know, because people outside Western people, they just know little, and they know more about the gods, and some of it about the gods, some of it about the past, but nothing about now. So that's why I was so excited that this game is focused on the now and how everything is at this point. And so it is wonderful. And also another wonderful thing is how the game development in India is also growing. And there's this PlayStation is also, or Sony is also very much looking forward to that. It is growing. More and more people are doing it. Where do you think the development phase of games are going in India?
I think it's going in the right direction. Sony is obviously doing a great job with India Hero Project and everything that they do. Microsoft doing a really amazing job. We're part of the Microsoft Developer Accelerator program. They've given us a grant to bring the game to Xbox. They're doing an incredible job as well. I love the fact that these two huge platforms have identified opportunity in this market and are doing like a ground up kind of ecosystem push, right?
Yeah.
Not just a marketing push. It's like they want games by Indians for Indians, that kind of thing. So yeah, all things headed in the right direction with those kind of platform support, but we need even more platform support, right? We need even more, we need support from Google for Android, because that's the largest gaming platform in India, right? And we need platform support from Apple and from Steam and everybody else who are stakeholders in that ecosystem. And then we also need more belief, right? We need belief from investors. We need belief from the business side of things that, yes, games is hit and miss, but just look at the size of the market. If you venture out and you invest enough to achieve a hit, then it's a huge opportunity. It's a huge white space that's there. And then finally, like, there needs to be support from the players, right? There needs to be an understanding that the first few attempts won't be that good, and that it takes time for developers also to learn about what their audience exactly wants. It's a back and forth, and and that they can express themselves in a nice way too. Like, it doesn't always have to be dismissive and toxic. It can actually be supportive and positive and constructive, right? It's not that developers are not listening for feedback. I would love nothing more than for my audience to tell me exactly what to make, because then I wouldn't have to guess. But that's not how that conversation goes online, right? So
it's a different field.
So maturity there would be amazing for the ecosystem. And but I have to say that, like, the quality level of the upcoming developers is amazing. The games that are upcoming are all very, very exciting, and we're making a dent in culture for sure in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I'm super excited for all these games coming out, because they look fabulous, they look fantastic, and there's a hype building up for it. And at the same time, as you mentioned about how people from India are always a little bit more to the toxic side, instead of like kind of like criticism, positive side of things. They're not there, but they're mostly on the toxic side of how Indian developers are not making good games, and it's like all these angry comments, which I don't actually understand, because it's a weird complaint when people say there's no Indian games when they are and they don't play them.
Or pay for them.
Because somehow, and it's weird, because I feel like a lot of people, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of people in India are more into the shooters and the open worlds, rather than the other very casual, cozy games, which I really have fun.
I think and nothing wrong with open world or shooter, right? That, of course, those are really fun, and people should be into them. Those are the loudest people. I think there is a whole other audience of casual gamers that doesn't go online and talk about games. But they're there, and I am pretty certain they're much larger than the shooter playing audience. And when that audience starts getting served and starts accepting local games, it's going to be a huge move for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that more people get to know or play these games that are coming up. And you mentioned earlier about platforms and support that these platforms can give, and you are already with Xbox and with their support, and you're trying to bring these games. And one of the things that like small indie developers or whatever the game developers, they're trying to probably either get to Game Pass or whatever it is, and people have these conflicts or thoughts about whether Game Pass is valuable or not. But for you as a studio, as a game developing, what do you think, or what do you see as the value of Game Pass for games like yours?
Oh, it's great, because you get to sort of upfront have some surety about sales, right? Every indie developer is always worried that they will launch their game and no one's going to buy it. Right. Game Pass kind of takes that out of their minds a little bit, and I mean, it obviously depends on how the deal is structured, but services like Game Pass help you rely on the sort of joint marketing muscle of a very, very large organization, and a very, very large subscription product, which you will be a small part of, but like it takes a lot of the burden off of your shoulders in terms of finding the market, because Game Pass already has whatever X number of subscribers, some Y percentage of those X subscribers will like your game, and then like that all that. So that's I think it's fantastic for game developers. Of course, we have to be very careful about what kind of deals get offered and get made, and not just for Game Pass, but any such service. I think there needs to be fairness and support built in for the game developer in there as well. But
Yeah, you're right. For indie developers, as you said, they're scared of whether the game will be selling enough or not, and Game Pass definitely provides that. And I think it gives more like people who are playing games, it gives more of probably an excuse, I guess, to say, oh yeah, now I can play this game or something like that. But it's at least for the studios, it's like great push to really get these games to people that they probably couldn't maybe by themselves or something like that. So I'm really happy that Game Pass has that option, and it's really cool to see again this game is coming out, which I'm super excited for. And I know obviously you've been fan of games. Do you have a top 3 favorite games at this point?
Oh wow, okay. So I have a very unhealthy relationship with Clash Royale. I always play that game. I get to a certain point, and then I delete it because I'm playing it too much. And then 6 months will go by, and then I will again install it, and I'll start from zero, and then reach that point, and then again delete it. So Clash Royale, but I think it's an unbelievable game. It's they just really like, I don't know, they figured out like how to make chess real time or something like that. It's like that level of fun. So I love that game. What are the games? There's a game called Mini Metro. It's a road connection game. Mini Motorways. Mini Metro is the train one, and then Mini Motorways is the car one. I like the car one, where you basically guiding cars in the city. You sort of have to manage ever growing traffic. It's a really fun game. Those two come to mind. I have to say I'm biased towards Spore. I love the creature creator in Spore. I think is like the most fun toy ever. I don't know if you can call it a game or not, but it's definitely one of the most fun interactive experiences. And I'm not saying that because I worked on it. I truly believe that it is groundbreaking interactive experience. A lot of smart people worked on it, and it's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, those very fun, really cool game. Clash of Clans. And Clash Royale.
Clash Royale.
Clash
I
Royale.
do not like Clash of Clans.
Clash of Clans. Yeah, Clash of Clans. I did play Clash of Clans way back, but Clash Royale, I know has somehow is able to do so well, and so many people are able to go. And as you mentioned, the toxic relationship. I think it's everyone's relationship with Clash Royale.
A lot of people we have a support group where we talk about this. It's like, oh, I'm playing again. It's like, oh no, are you playing again? Wait, I'll join as well. It's like, no, that's not what you're supposed to say. You're supposed to say stop playing.
Oh man, it's funny. It's amazing. And with those top 3 games, obviously, do you have any games that you feel like are underrated according to you?
Oh, gosh. So many. I mean, there's just so many games out there that haven't gotten the light shining on them in the way that they should. I mean, I wouldn't know how to answer that question, honestly, because, I mean, I don't know the kind of financial outcomes of a lot of these games.
True.
I'm not privy to that data, so I don't know if they're truly underrated. It's just my perception. But yeah, so many great games. Gosh, I don't know. I'd have to look through Steam and like give you a list, but I can't think on the top of my head of any games like that. There's so many. I just feel like there's got to be tons and tons of games that they're like, wow, this is so well made. Why isn't everybody playing this? That kind of thing.
True. Yeah. Like once you discover it or once you play it and really play it, and then you realize, okay, this game, why is there only 500 people wrote a review for this game instead of 500?
Yeah. Like, okay, I thought of one. There's a game called Stormbound. I don't know if you played that, but it's a deck builder. I think it's successful. It was very successful on Congregate, I think, for a while. But it's one of those games where I was so addicted to it. I was like, why isn't the whole world playing this? But that's just that's my bias. So I don't know. It's hard to answer that question about has the game gotten the light it deserves or not. Is a difficult question to answer.
True. And with that, I just want to say thank you once again so much for joining today, for talking about all of this. Detective Dotson is coming out very soon. Is there a definitive release date, or you guys are still working on it?
We don't have a release date. We want to be pencils down by the end of the year and then look for a good window. As you know, like you have to look at like who else is launching and to actually figure out the exact date. So we don't have a date set, but let's just keep it at end of the year, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. Can people play the demo now, or is it you're going to be re-releasing it sometime?
The demo is live for now. It's going to be up at least this month. I'm not sure. We may take it down in July, but June, all of June, you can still play the demo on our Steam page.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I hope a lot of people get to play it. A lot of people already played it, and again, thanks to Feature Game Showcase and IGN and all, gets more people got eyes on that product. So I'm super excited. I'm super excited for Masala Games and when the game comes out and when people get to play it. I think it's on PC and Android and iOS, I believe.
Well, eventually, we want to be on everything, on as many consoles and handhelds, and I don't know. I want to be on your calculator as well. But yeah, that's the goal, is to be cross-platform. Yeah.
So do you think that this game is also going to be on Steam Deck then?
It already works on a Steam Deck.
Oh, it does?
I have a Steam Deck here somewhere. Yeah, it totally works. If you have a Steam Deck, you'll have a great time playing the game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the handheld community, they're going to love this game. Yeah. So again, thank you so much for sticking by and talking about all this. It was really fun to know about the process and everything that's going on. Super stoked to see the audience reactions and people get to play this game. And I myself, I want to see what is happening with the story, because I was really intrigued by the end of the demo and how his father and what's happening with it, and it's really cool. So I'm looking forward to see more mechanics and what happens in this world. So
yeah, man, thanks so much. I had so much fun talking through all the things, and we need support from folks like you to spread the message about what we're doing.
Absolutely,
and I really appreciate it.